What's up, guys? Welcome to June 7th as we dive into Ecclesiastes chapter 7 Wisdom for Life. A good reputation is more valuable than costly perfume, and the way you die is better than the way you are born. Better to spend your time at funerals than at parties. After all, everyone dies, so the living should take this to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for sadness has a refining influence on us. A wise person thinks a lot about death, while a fool thinks only about having a good time. Better to be criticized by a wise person than to be praised by a fool. A fool's laughter is quickly gone. Like thorns crackling in a fire, this also is meaningless. Extortion turns wise people into fools, and bribes corrupt hearts. Finishing is better than starting. Patience is better than pride. Control your temper, for anger labels you a fool. Don't long for the good old days. This is not wise. Wisdom is even better when you have money. Both are a benefit as you go through life. Wisdom and money can get you almost anything, but only wisdom can save your life. Accept the way God does things. For who can straighten what he has made crooked? Enjoy prosperity while you can, but when hard times strike, realize that both come from God. Remember that nothing is certain in this life. The limits of human wisdom. I have seen everything in this meaningless life, including the death of good young people and the long life of wicked people. So don't be too good or too wise. Why destroy yourself? On the other hand, don't be too wicked either. Don't be a fool. Why die before your time? Pay attention to these instructions, for anyone who fears God will avoid both extremes. One wise person is stronger than 10 leading citizens of his town. Not a single person on earth is always good and never sins. Don't eavesdrop on others. You may hear your servant curse you, for you know how often you yourself have cursed others. I have always tried my best to let wisdom guide my thoughts and actions. I said to myself, I am determined to be wise, but it didn't work. Wisdom is always distant and difficult to find. I searched everywhere, determined to find wisdom and to understand the reason for things. I was determined to prove to myself that wickedness is stupid and that foolishness is madness. I discovered that a seductive woman is a trap more bitter than death. Her passion is a snare, and her soft hands are chains. Those who are pleasing to God will escape her, but sinners will be caught in her snare. This is my conclusion, says the teacher. I discovered that after looking at the matter from every possible angle, though I have searched repeatedly, I have not found what I was looking for. Only 1 out of 1,000 men is virtuous, but not one woman. But I did find this: God created people to be virtuous, but they have each turned to follow their own downward path. How wonderful to be wise, to analyze and interpret things. Wisdom lights up a person's face, softening its harshness. Obedience to the king. Obey the king, since you vowed to God that you would. Don't try to avoid doing your duty, and don't stand with those who plot evil. For the king can do whatever he wants. His command is backed by great power. No one can resist or question it. Those who obey him will not be punished. Those who are wise will find a time and a place and a way to do what is right. For there is a time and a way for everything, even when a person is in trouble. Indeed, how can people avoid what they don't know is going to happen? None of us can hold back our spirit from departing. None of us has the power to prevent the day of our death. There is no escaping that obligation, that dark battle. And in the face of death, wickedness will certainly not rescue the wicked. the wicked and the righteous. I have thought deeply about all that goes on here under the sun, where people have the power to hurt each other. I've seen wicked people buried with honor, yet they were the very ones who frequented the temple and are now praised in the same city where they committed their crimes. This too is meaningless. What a crime! When a crime is not punished quickly, people feel it is safe to do wrong. Even but even though a person sins 100 times and still lives a long time, I know that those who fear God will be better off. The wicked will not prosper, for they do not fear God. Their days will never grow long like the evening shadows, and this is not all that is meaningless in our world. In this life, good people are often treated as though they were wicked, and wicked people are often treated as though they are good. This is meaningless. So I recommend having fun, because there is nothing better for people to in this world than to eat, drink, and enjoy life. That way they will experience some happiness along with all the hard work God gives them under the sun. In my search for wisdom and in my observation of people's burdens here on earth, I discover that there is ceaseless activity day and night. I realize no one can discover everything God is doing under the sun. Not even the wisest person discover everything, no matter what they claim. Death comes to all. This too I carefully explored. Even though the actions of godly and wise people are in God's hands, no one knows whether God will show them favor. The same destiny ultimately awaits everyone, whether righteous or wicked, good or bad, certainly ceremonially clean or unclean, right, religious or irreligious. People, good people receive the same treatment as sinners, and people who make promises to God are treated like people who don't. It seems so wrong that everyone under the sun suffers the same fate. Already twisted by evil, people choose their own and mad course, for they have no hope. There is nothing ahead but death anyway. This is hope only for the living. As they say, it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. The living at least know they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward, nor that they remembered. Whatever they did in their lifetime, loving, hating, envying, is all long gone. They no longer played a part in anything here on earth. So go ahead, eat your food with joy and drink your wine with a happy heart, for God approves of this. Wear fine clothes with a special calling, 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 live happily with the woman you love through all the meaningless days of life that God has given you under the sun. The wife God gives you is your reward for all your earthly toil. Whatever you do, do well, for you go to the grave. For when you go to the grave, there will be no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom. I have observed something else under the sun. The fastest runner doesn't always win the race, and the strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. The wise sometimes go hungry, and the skillful are not necessarily wealthy, and those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. It is all decided by chance, by being in the right place at the right time. People can never predict when hard times might come. Like fish in a net or birds in a trap, people are caught by sudden tragedy. Thoughts on wisdom and folly. Here is another bit of wisdom that has impressed me as I have watched the way our world works. There was a small town with only a few people, and a great king came with his army and besieged it. A poor wise man knew how to save the town, so it was rescued. But afterward, no one thought to thank him. So even though wisdom is better than strength, those who are wise will be despised if they are poor. What they say will not be appreciated for long. Better to hear the quiet voice. Better to hear the quiet words of a wise person than the shouts of a foolish king. Better to have wisdom than weapons of war. But one sinner can destroy much that is good. As a as dead flies cause even a bottle of perfume to stink, so a little Foolishness spoils great wisdom and honor. A wise person chooses the right road. A fool takes the wrong road, a wrong one. You can identify fools just by the way they walk down the street. If your boss is angry at you, don't quit. A quiet spirit can overcome even great mistakes. There is another evil I have seen under the sun. Kings and rulers make a grave mistake when they give great authority to foolish people and low positions to people of proven worth. I have even seen servants riding horseback like princes and princes walking like servants. When you dig a well, you might fall in. When you demolish an old wall, you could be bitten by a snake. When you work in a quarry, stones might fall and crush you. When you chop wood, there is danger with each stroke of your axe. Using a dull axe requires great strength, so sharpen the blade. That's the value of wisdom. It helps you succeed. If a snake bites before you charm it. What's the use of being a snake charmer? Wise words bring approval, but fools are destroyed by their own words. Fools base their thoughts on foolish assumptions so that their conclusions might or will be wicked madness. They chatter on and on. No one really knows what is going to happen. No one can predict the future. Fools are so exhausted by a little work that they can't even find their own way home. What sorrow for the land ruled by a servant, the land whose leaders feast in the morning. Happy is the land whose king is a noble leader and whose leaders feast on the proper time to gain strength for their work, not to get drunk. Laziness leads to a sagging roof. Idleness leads to a leaking house. A party gives laughter, wine gives happiness, and money gives everything. Never make light of the king, even in your thoughts, and don't make fun of the powerful, even in your own bedroom, for a little bird might deliver your message and tell them what you said. Chapter 11. Generosity and Diligence. Send your grain across the seas, and in time profits will flow back to you. But divide your investments among many places, for you do not know what risks might lie ahead. When clouds are heavy, the rain comes down. Whether a tree falls north or south, it stays where it falls. Farmers who wait for perfect weather never plant. If they watch every cloud, they never harvest. Just as you cannot understand the path of the wind or the mystery of a tiny baby growing in its mother's womb, so can you not understand the activity of God, who does all things. Plant your seed in the morning and keep busy all afternoon, for you don't know if profit will come from one activity or another, or maybe both. And so that's the end for today's reading. I like how in verse 5 of chapter 11 where it talks about we may not understand things. We may not understand the pattern of the wind, the mystery of a tiny baby growing in its mother's wombs, but you cannot understand. Just because we don't understand why things are happening does not mean that God is not working for us or just working in general. It's sometimes I feel like one bad thing happens, follows by another, discouragements after discouragements, always feeling upset about things. It's almost in a sense at least for me, sometimes I could feel is God even here? Is God even listening? But take heart that He is listening, He is doing something. We may just not always fully understand exactly what it is that He's doing, but be able to trust His process, be able to trust that He is doing everything for our own good and things. And then so kind of in the beginning of chapter 7, it talks about how reputation is better than costly perfumes or anything that's earthly valuable. Materials. The good reputation is better than materials, which I agree with. The day you die is better than the day you are born. I'm not really sure what that means. Is it because does it mean we gain more life experience after we die. Then we understand life better when we die than when we were born. I don't fully understand what that means, but better spend your time at the funerals than at a party. After all, everyone dies, so the living should take this to heart. Oh yeah, everybody's dying, but like that, I don't know, it's like I don't think partying is bad in a sense. Especially like if you create like a party for like a funeral, that's a way to celebrate somebody's life. I don't think that's something that's negative, you know. And a wise person thinks a lot about death, while a fool thinks only about having a good time. That I agree with. It's like I feel like wise people are the people that actually like worry about like how their actions may lead up to how their actions may affect their afterlife. While people who are just entertained by the earthly things, by the vibes, by the people, by the popularity, by the wealth, it's like they, yes, they may be really smart, but just because you're smart does that mean you're wise? Or like just because you have all these things, if just because you focus so much on the earthly pleasures, that does not make you wise. When you always, if all you focus about is, if all you do is focus on having a good time in this world instead of making decisions, being consciously aware that what you're making, the decisions that you make may either positively or negatively affect you in the afterlife. Better be criticized by a wise person than to be praised by a fool. Yeah. Finishing is better than starting. Yeah, I guess. To get that satisfaction of being able to finish something, maybe. Patience is better than pride. Yep. Control your temper, for anger labels you a fool. Yeah, that makes sense. Don't long for the good days. Don't long for good old days. That is not wise. I mean, yeah, if you like reflect it, if you use that like as a way to like thank God, thank you God for all the ways that you have blessed me with those opportunities, with those times in the past. It's like those I don't think are bad. But like if you're just wishing you can't seem to move forward with life about what you have lost, that's not good for you. It makes you more miserable. But it's like I mean it's like something I have to struggle, like I have to deal with for a little while. Now it's like today was my graduation day, and so I just graduated and things, and now just kind of sitting in silence, kind of reflecting, trying to reflect on the goodness of God instead of reflecting on all the things I'm gonna miss. Where it's like it's where I'm just like starting to think it's like, oh, back in those days, you know, it's like wishing that I have those days back because I can't. You can't. You can wish for something, but it's not gonna happen. I can't just travel back into the past and just say like, oh, let me just restart my whole high school life. I have to keep moving forward, learn from our mistakes, uh, learn to embrace the good parts, good moments of high school and things. And then the talks about the limits of human wisdom. I don't know why this author is so obsessed with dying, I guess. It's like I don't know, yeah, I don't fully understand. It's like it keeps saying how like it kind of talked about women and how they could be dangerous women who could seduce men based off of what they do and stuff, which is like something that's dangerous because like if you really want to find like a wife or a woman that you really trust, like, you have to look at the heart before you look at the appearance. But our society kind of messes that up. It's like whereas like we look at the appearance, oh, that person's attractive, oh, let me go talk to this person now, instead of like looking at the heart, how they treat other people and stuff. We should be drawn to people's character, not necessarily their their outward appearance and stuff. And then the obedience to the king, that reminds me of how I feel like it's like God has put people in higher in positions of power. It's like it's our job to respect the position, but we don't always have to tag along with the position, if that makes sense. It's like for me, it's like so like the last time I preached and stuff, it's like I told my principal that if I preach, like I'm gonna preach, just I want him to do what he thinks is best, what he needs to do. That shows like respect for his power. It's like I'm not saying like, I'm not like trying to attack his power, or I'm not trying to defend myself. It's like I'm just saying like understand like what my actions could do when it comes to preaching, and him telling me what the consequences are and stuff, and for me to be able to acknowledge, saying like, okay, I see, I acknowledge your power, I acknowledge where you're coming from and stuff. And so if I do something like this, I know that I know that you're not doing it out of envy, but out of like your position of power, if that makes sense. Because like when I preach, after I preach and stuff, he hasn't talked to me about it, so I think that's kind of something that God has answered a prayer for me about. It's like asking God just to give patience to Mr. Sides, or like to the school, to not get angry so fast and stuff. I don't know. I don't know what happened. It's just like he just didn't talk to me about it, so which I'm obviously grateful for, because he says like the consequences to preaching is like suspension and stuff. So anyways, and it talks about the wicked and the righteous. How there's this seems to be this injustice going on where like wicked people are living longer than righteous people. And how evil people seems to be getting away with their crimes, actually being celebrated. They actually, the city, whatever, is like celebrating their evil actions, their crimes, which is obviously a problem if you're celebrating somebody's crime. But then kind of zooming forward, it talks about how death comes to all. Like I said, there's just this constant theme of death to all, and like why because we have death that makes life meaningless. It's like, I'm not sure about that, to be honest, but and then yeah, and then it just talks about thoughts on wisdom and folly, and how like better to be quiet, better to hear the quiet words of a wise person than the shouts of a foolish king. Better to have wisdom than weapons of war, but one sinner can destroy what much that is good and stuff. But again, this author's making a comparison about how like wisdom is so much better than the earthly things, the positions, power, possessions, like these things. It's like he's like, this person like saying how like wisdom, like we should be asking for wisdom, but like at the same time we have to understand like he's saying how like wisdom is also, you have to kind of, to live like really good life, is like having a balance between wisdom and money and stuff. And so like he's not saying like you should get rid of all the earthly things, but like we gotta understand what is important to keep, what is not important to keep, and things. But yeah, and then he talks about how like we could be digging wells, but we could fall into it. When you demolish an old wall, you can be bitten by a snake. Like that, I don't know, that seems to be talking about how like whatever we create in this lifetime, that make sure that we don't cause ourselves to stumble into the thing. So like if I criticize somebody of something, I have to make sure that I don't do the things I'm literally criticizing other people about. It's like basically he's saying like how don't be a hypocrite in a sense. But yeah, that's kind of all that I have to share for now and stuff. But yeah, so may you guys go and walk with God.